Should you know everything?
Thank you so much. I would love to just also, Pavel is here, so if you could please raise your hand. Marcel Lozinski is back here. And I also just wanted to give a credit personally to film curator and journalist Ella Bittencourt, who's sitting right here, who introduced me to Marcel's work several years ago, and so I feel a great debt to you. And if we need to Polish at some point, you're going to be here, so just so you understand the geography of the space here, Ella will be here. But otherwise, we'll have translation from French.
Donc, je vous remercie beaucoup et je te remercie toi aussi beaucoup parce que sinon je ne serais pas trouvé ici avec Pavel.
Yes, thanks to you. Thanks also to you, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to sit here.
And if you're not familiar, I'm sure many of you are, but Marcel's work goes back nearly 50 years, and with films that I'm familiar with in terms of including How to Live, Anything Can Happen, Autoportrait, Front Collision, Happy End, and many more. And this film is the one we're going to at least begin by talking about. And I'd love to know, I know that both you and Pavel credit the original idea for this film to Pavel. And I'd love to know your recollection of what that idea was and how that changed. Because my understanding that there was a notion of maybe making a movie about you, but then that evolved into something between the two of you.
Oui, bien sûr, d'autant plus que... D'autant plus que...
Yes, of course, that was the case. And at first, it was Pavel's idea. He wanted to make a film about me. Pavel wanted to make this film. I didn't agree in the beginning. I wasn't sure. And then I said, well, since we are both filmmakers, okay, let's make a film about the past and our views on this past. So we'll double different views, but it will be one movie, one film.
Et pendant tout le voyage,
I must say, of course, things changed. Well, I thought the trip was a very good idea. I thought it was a very good idea, but of course we had different objectives. For me, the objective was, you know, to get a chance to spend 2 weeks with my son, which is fairly exceptional when, you know, I was 70 years old at the time. So spending 2 weeks with your son is something. Of course, for Pavel, the main thing was to make a film. And of course, well, I suppose that he was also pleased to spend 2 weeks with his father, but the film was the main thing. And, well, you can see that the shooting of the film, you know, he was, you know, looking after the technical part, the diaphragm, the shooting, etc. It was like a video film, really.
C'était bien, il voulait, mais pour moi, c'était vraiment secondaire.
And in fact, it wasn't until we got to the editing part that some of the obstacles, you know, you have to climb a staircase and obstacles, etc., that, you know, turned out to be there. And there I realized that this idea of mine to make a film together was really, really stupid.
Because,
of course, there's the father and son thing, where you both have a different view of what happened in the past, obviously. Okay, so first, of course, yeah, so you have the two different point of views of father and son, and then you have two different point of views of two filmmakers. That makes 4, and that's too much.
Et là, la situation est devenue un tout petit peu...
So that's where things got to be a bit, itchy, a bit tortured in a way. And so we then decided that there would be 2 films because there were so many things we couldn't agree upon. There were hundreds of things about the cutting, about the rhythm of the film. So that didn't work. It was just impossible. And so I really want to thank Pavel here because he was the producer. And so instead of producing 1 film, there were 2 films to produce. So that was not easy.
Un film, on fait 2 films. C'était pas si facile pour lui, mais il n'y avait pas d'autres solutions, je trouve.
Voilà.
I was going to ask, you hadn't worked together before. I'm curious why not.
C'était la première fois. Pourquoi vous n'avez pas travaillé ensemble?
Well, we did work together. First of all, he was quite young, and then he was my assistant in several films, like 89 millimeters or Everything Can Happen. So he was my assistant. At the same time, we knew that we would be unable to work together as a team because we are both very independent and very insistent, about our independence.
But you said that you primarily wanted the journey to spend time with your son, and yet you're a filmmaker, an extraordinary one, and you're making decisions along the way in terms of shooting him and choosing when to turn on the camera and what you might want to have captured on film. Can you talk a little bit about those decisions and what you actually were looking for to record?
Yeah, well, of course. I am a filmmaker, and I was very much aware that we were shooting a film. And so I did everything possible, everything that was possible for me to do. I was responsible also, and I reacted as a filmmaker. You have to really be responsible towards your producer as well. Yes, well, of course it's true, the camera is always there, but at the same time you also tend to forget, so it's there, it's not there, you eat together, you spend time together, and of course instinctively you react to the camera as well as to the company, and but yeah, we were also spending time together, walking around, that was it.
Your version of the film is about 20 minutes or so longer than Pavel's, and to my eyes, a lot of what's in that extra footage is footage of Pavel. And so it's hard not to feel that you were interested in him and he was interested in you.
Yes, well, of course there are a few extra scenes, of course, but it's Pavel who made the first film, right? He did the first. Had the first cutting done, and that was the film. And then, of course, we also used the same technician to work with, so that was a disaster as well.
Le principe de montage était, je crois, le même chez lui et chez moi, indépendamment, c'est-à-dire sortir des petites choses.
Yes, well, of course, I think both Pavel and I, we had the same, we did more or less the same work, the same type of editing. What we both did, I think, is we show details that may not seem very important, that may seem kind of sort of everyday, but build slowly and softly towards something that might become a conflict, but not showing really hard conflict. And so there are just, I will talk about the 20 extra minutes in my film. Yeah, well, there are some scenes that are different from what Pavel showed. Right, so the 20 extra minutes in my film are mainly about giving some more, making more of a portrait of Pavel. I mean, in his version, he didn't do so. He shows little of himself. Of course, he didn't. Well, maybe not. Of course, but anyway, he didn't. And so, in my film, I show more about his life, his thinking, about his comments, for example, how he doesn't want to fight for humanity, like my mother, his grandmother, for example, this kind of comments. This way of life to Pavel is completely inconceivable, that you would sacrifice your life for the community, for humanity. And of course, he's talking about my mother, his grandmother, who was a communist before the war. I don't know if you realize the huge differences that makes, to be a communist before the war or to be a communist in a socialist country after the war. It's because, of course, the communists before the war were in the opposition. So being a communist frequently meant that you would end up in prison. And then, of course, afterwards, it sort of turned into an idea of utopia. I think it's one of the reasons why my mother committed suicide, because she realized that she had really consecrated her life to an idea that turned out to be a criminal idea. And an idea that has caused the death of millions and millions.
And the thing about that scene, though, it cuts both ways in that scene, though, because on one hand, Pavel is talking about how he sees things differently in terms of sacrifice in politics versus as being what he can't identify with, but what he is saying in exchange is how important family is to him, which is also very powerful. And I wonder, as a father, what it was like to listen to your son over the course of the film in terms of witnessing him and also hearing him speak honestly with you.
Oui, d'accord, mais je suis d'accord. Il y a une question dedans parce que je trouve pas une question.
Oh yeah, but your question is not quite clear to me.
Sure, I was transitioning from this scene that Pavel is talking about how he can't identify basically with, as you're saying, with his grandmother in terms of sacrifice in politics. But he's saying in exchange that that family is really important.
Le bonheur, c'est ma vie, ma famille.
Exactly. And so, but you're his father. He's saying that too. So I'm wondering what it was like in that moment and in other moments to listen to your son speak honestly about himself.
Non, ça m'a rien fait parce que je le savais très bien.
I mean, as such, it didn't affect me so much because I know it. I knew it. I've always known it. So, but what I was wondering about was, okay, about the context. What would his or what would Pavel's attitude, position have been if it was not about, his grandmother and communism, but say about, the persecution of the Jews and when he was living it? If he had been in the middle of it, would he have adhered to the resistance or not? That was more my preoccupation.
It sounds like a conversation that you've had before and that you continue to have together.
No, I think no. We've come. We've agreed to stop that. I think the film did put a stop to some period.
Le film c'était au moment.
And I think that it was the making of the film that allowed Pavel to break the umbilical cord. It's a bit late, it's a bit old, but there you are.
C'était comme ça.
It's a beautiful conversation that we get a chance to see over the course of these weeks, and it's a conversation that was continued maybe not the way that you planned in terms of there being these two films that are talking to each other. And then this afternoon, I noticed the two of you having a conversation through the film while you were watching. And I can't help but wonder the nature of this conversation here.
I think we are still waiting to learn and to get to know a child that is really, really satisfied with their parents. Well, I was joking, more or less. There's always this question about how to raise children. Should you give them the freedom I gave my child? Apparently not. There's a lot of criticism about it as well. Apparently, well, that's what Pavel explained, that he had missed, in his childhood, he had missed some type of, you know, security, of feeling, you know, really balanced. Yes, well, I'm not going to talk too long here, but really, I mean, if you raise your child in quite a harsh way, there'll be a lot of criticism. If you do it sort of half-half, that's even worse. So how does one raise a child? I mean, I'm really curious to know. If anyone in this room here has an answer, I'd be really curious to know it. And do speak up, please, if you do have the secret of raising children. Of course, I had 3 children, 3 sons. They're all grown up now. So, but I know it might be quite useful to some other people here present in the room.
Comment élever un enfant? Un titre du film.
Child. Maybe it could be a good title for a film.
Yes. Well, I have to say, as somebody who is a child of parents, I found it actually quite powerful to see. Everyone is everyone is a child of parents. That we are. That there was something about, for me, in my experience watching the film, and I told this to Pavel yesterday, something incredibly powerful about even having some of these conversations, even a father and son even attempting to have these conversations is something extremely powerful, and I think a gift to us to be able to witness these conversations. And I think that another thing that's extraordinary about it is that this is a conversation, I think, is clear between equals. Intelligent, brilliant, talented men attempting to learn something about each other is a true gift.
Yes, and all this is thanks to Pavel, because it was his idea. He came up with the idea. I never did anything like it with my parents. And they were communists before the war, they were in Spain before the war, they were in resistance. I never asked any of the difficult questions. I never put any questions to my parents in the same way.
And so I think we have to go, but I'm curious, you have made a few films since then, including this.
No, I haven't made any films since. And that's also because it's due to one of the heroines of one of the films I planned. And so that it was quite exceptional. I had a period where I worked on it. And in fact, I was ready to start shooting 2 months ago, and then I worked on it for 3 years. And then the heroine, the principal character, the heroine of the film, said, I can't do it. If we do this film, I'm going to die. And, well, that was a bit of hysterics, of course, but you know, I also said to her, okay, life is more important than films, so we don't do it.
Well, I hope for your sake that you get a chance to make it.
You know, it's a problem for the producer, and of course, it's not a film like what we did, what I did with Pavel, we and Pavel did. You know, it was really a big production with an important budget, and so of course, well, you can always, you know, delay it a bit. Say, if we knew we could start shooting in 3 months, maybe we will do it. But I mean, you can't just postpone it longer and longer because, you know, the budget might have disappeared.
Well, then I'll rephrase and say that for our sake, I hope you get a chance to make the film because we want to see more films from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I hope so.
Thank you all. Thank you.